There are two types of women in this world. One exhausts herself trying to be noticed. She gives more. She tries harder. She bends herself into shapes hoping someone will finally see her. The other simply walks into a room and without effort, without performance, without asking, all eyes turn to her. The difference between these two women is not what you think. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what it is. And that brings me to why this matters so much. Because somewhere along the way, many of us learned something that hurt us deeply. We learned that in order to be seen, we have to perform. In order to be loved, we have to earn it. In order to matter, we have to constantly prove our worth. So we tried harder, we gave more. We dimmed ourselves down to make others comfortable. We turned ourselves inside out, hoping someone, anyone, would finally see us, finally choose us, finally pay attention. And do you know what happened? The more we chased attention, the more it ran from us. The more we begged to be seen, the more invisible we felt. And the worst part, it wasn't because we weren't enough. It was because we were looking for validation in the wrong places. We were trying to fill an internal emptiness with external applause. But that never works. Not in the long run. This is why understanding what we're going to talk about today is so important for your life. For your peace. For your relationships. For the example you set for your daughters, your nieces, the young women watching you. Because whether you're 32 or 50, 5, whether you're single, married, divorced, or starting over completely, you deserve to be seen. You deserve to be noticed. You deserve to have people value your presence, not because you asked for it, but because you carry yourself in a way that naturally commands respect. And the beautiful thing is, this is not about changing who you are. It's about becoming more of who you already are. So today I want to share with you 5 habits. 5 beautiful, powerful, quiet habits that women who never beg for attention live by every single day. These are not tricks. These are not games. These are not manipulation tactics. These are ways of being, ways of thinking, ways of carrying yourself that will shift everything about how others see you, and more importantly, how you see yourself. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why some women seem to attract attention like magnets, while others feel invisible no matter how hard they try. And you will walk away with clear, practical shifts you can make starting today, starting this week, that will begin to change your energy, your aura, and the way the world responds to you. Because here's what I believe with my whole heart. You were never meant to beg for attention. You were meant to receive it. Naturally. Gracefully. Effortlessly. Let's begin. Habit number 1, she fills her own cup first. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Women who never have to beg for attention are not waiting for someone else to make them feel whole. They are not walking around with an empty cup, hoping someone will come along and fill it. No. They wake up every morning and they pour into themselves first. Now, why does this matter so deeply? Because when you are empty, you become needy. When you are running on fumes emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you start seeking from others what only you can give yourself. And people can feel that. They may not be able to put it into words, but they sense it. They feel the energy of someone who is desperately hoping to be filled versus the energy of someone who is already overflowing. Think about it like this. Imagine 2 women standing in the same room at a gathering. The first woman hasn't slept well in weeks. She hasn't done anything that brings her joy in months. She hasn't taken care of her body, her mind, or her spirit. She shows up exhausted, running on empty, hoping that maybe someone at this gathering will notice her. Maybe someone will compliment her. Maybe someone will make her feel like she matters. Now imagine the second woman. She woke up early that morning, not to please anyone else, but because she wanted to. She had her quiet moment. Maybe it was tea on the balcony. Maybe it was a walk. Maybe it was a prayer or a few pages of a book that feeds her soul. She moved her body not because she hates it, but because she loves it. She nourished herself with good food. She dressed in something that makes her feel like herself, confident, comfortable, radiant. When she walks into that room, she's not looking for attention. She's not scanning for validation. She's simply present. Full. Content. And here's the magic: that fullness is magnetic. People are drawn to it without even understanding why. They feel safe around her. They feel inspired by her. They want to be near her energy, not because she's performing, but because she's simply at peace with herself. So what can you do starting today? First, I want you to ask yourself one honest question. When was the last time you did something purely for your own joy? Not for your children. Not for your partner, not for your job or your responsibilities, just for you. If you can't remember, that's okay. That's not something to feel shame about. It's simply information. It's a sign that you've been giving and giving without refilling your own well. So here's what I want you to try. Every single day, yes, every day, take at least 15 minutes that belong only to you. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as sitting in silence with your coffee before the house wakes up. It can be a walk around the block. It can be lighting a candle and listening to music that moves your soul. The point is not what you do. The point is that you do something that reminds you I matter. My peace matters. My joy matters. Second, I want you to start noticing what drains you. What are the things, or honestly, sometimes, who are the people that leave you feeling empty every time you engage with them? You don't have to cut everyone off. You don't have to be harsh. But you can start being more protective of your energy. You can start saying no to things that take more than they give. You can start choosing rest over obligation when you're running low. And third, and this is so important, I want you to stop apologizing for taking care of yourself. Too many women have been taught that self-care is selfish, that putting yourself first is wrong, that a good woman always gives and never receives. But that is not true. A woman who is always pouring out and never being poured into will eventually have nothing left to give. And that doesn't help anyone, not her family, not her friends, not her community, and certainly not herself. So fill your own cup first. Not because you are selfish, but because you understand that you cannot give what you do not have. And the more you have, the more you can give freely, joyfully, without resentment. That is the first habit of women who never have to beg for attention. Habit number 2, she speaks with intention, not desperation. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone who talked constantly? Someone who filled every silence with more words, more explanations, more justifications. How did that make you feel? Probably a little exhausted, right? Maybe even a little uncomfortable. And here's what most people don't realize: that constant talking. It usually comes from insecurity. It comes from a fear that if I stop talking, you'll forget I'm here. If I don't explain myself completely, you won't understand me. If I don't fill the silence, it will become awkward. But women who command attention, true lasting attention, they understand something different. They understand that silence is not emptiness. Silence is power. They don't speak to fill space. They speak because they have something worth saying, and when they do speak, people listen. Not because she raised her voice, not because she interrupted, but because her words carry weight. Her words have substance. Her words are intentional. Let me give you an example. Imagine a woman, let's call her Amira. Amira is in her early 40s. She's a professional, a mother, a woman who has lived enough life to know herself well. Amira is in a meeting at work. Everyone is talking over each other. Ideas are flying around the room. Some people are practically shouting to be heard. And Amira, she's quiet, she's listening. She's observing. Then, when there's a natural pause, she speaks. Just a few sentences. Clear, calm, thoughtful. And suddenly, the whole room turns to her. Not because she demanded attention, but because she earned it with patience, with presence, with purpose. This is what I mean by speaking with intention. It's not about being silent all the time. It's about choosing your moments. It's about understanding that every word you say either adds to your presence or takes away from it. Now, why does this matter for you? Because when you speak desperately over explaining yourself, repeating yourself, apologizing constantly for having an opinion, you send a message. You send the message that you are not sure you deserve to be heard, that you need to convince people to listen to you. But when you speak calmly, clearly, and only when you have something meaningful to contribute, you send a different message. You send the message that you know your own worth, that your words have value, that you don't need anyone's permission to take up space. So what can you do? First, practice the pause. Before you respond in a conversation, especially an important or emotional one, take a breath. Let there be a moment of silence. You don't have to rush to fill every gap. This does something powerful. It shows that you are in control of yourself, that you are thinking before you speak, that you are not reacting from a place of anxiety or fear. Second, stop over-explaining. If you say no to something, you don't need to give 10 reasons why. No, that doesn't work for me is a complete sentence. I'm not available for that is a complete sentence. When you over-explain, you invite negotiation. You invite people to pick apart your reasons and argue with each one. But when you state your truth simply and move on, there's nothing to argue with. Third, get comfortable with silence. This one is hard for a lot of women. We've been taught to keep things pleasant, to keep the conversation flowing, to make everyone feel comfortable. But sometimes, silence is the most powerful thing you can offer. Silence shows that you are not afraid to sit with yourself, that you don't need to perform, that you are confident enough to simply be. Practice this in your daily life, in conversations with friends, in meetings, in moments with your partner or your children. See what happens when you speak less but mean more. I promise you, people will start leaning in. They will start waiting for your words. They will start valuing what you say because you don't throw your words around carelessly. And that, my dear, is the energy of a woman who never has to beg to be heard. Habit number 3, she has a life she actually loves. Now this one is so important, and I want you to really hear me. One of the most powerful things a woman can do for herself, for her relationships, for her entire sense of worth, is to build a life that she genuinely loves. A life that is hers. A life that has meaning and joy and purpose, regardless of whether anyone is watching. Why does this matter? Because when your life revolves entirely around other people, when your happiness depends on a partner noticing you, or your children needing you, or your colleagues validating you, you become like a planet without a sun. You orbit around others. You wait for them to give you light. And when they don't, you feel cold, you feel invisible, you feel like you don't matter. But a woman who has her own life, she is the sun. She wakes up with things to look forward to. She has passions. She has interests. She has goals that have nothing to do with anyone else. And because of that, she doesn't need to beg for attention. She's too busy living her life to even think about it. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Sophia. Sophia is 46 years old. She went through a painful divorce a few years ago. For a long time, her whole world had been her marriage and her children. When the marriage ended, she didn't know who she was anymore. She felt invisible, forgotten, like she had wasted the best years of her life. But slowly, she started to rebuild. She remembered that she used to love painting. So she signed up for an art class. She remembered that she had always wanted to learn a new language. So she started taking lessons. She started walking every morning, not for exercise, but for herself, for peace. for clarity. And something shifted. Sophia stopped waiting for someone to make her life interesting. She made it interesting herself. And do you know what happened? People started noticing her. At the art class, people wanted to talk to her. At social gatherings, people were drawn to her energy. Even her children started seeing her differently, not just as mom, but as a woman with her own story, her own dreams. Sophia didn't beg for attention. She attracted it by becoming the most vibrant version of herself. So what can you do? First, ask yourself honestly, if you took away all your roles, mother, wife, employee, caretaker, what is left? Who are you when no one needs anything from you? If you don't have a clear answer, that's okay. That's the starting point. That's where your journey begins. Second, reconnect with something that used to bring you joy. Maybe you used to dance. Maybe you used to write. Maybe you used to garden or cook or travel. Think back to the things that made you feel alive before life got busy, before responsibilities piled up. Pick one, just one, and start doing it again. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to lead anywhere. It just has to be yours. Third, set at least one unpersonal goal that has nothing to do with anyone else. Maybe it's learning something new. Maybe it's reading a certain number of books this year. Maybe it's traveling to a place you've always wanted to see. When you have goals of your own, you have direction of your own. You have momentum of your own. And that momentum is magnetic. Finally, stop waiting for permission to live fully. I've met so many women who put their lives on hold. They say things like, when the kids are older, or when I retire, or when I find a partner. But here's the truth, there is no perfect time. There is only now. You don't need anyone's permission to be happy. You don't need anyone's approval to pursue your dreams. You can start today, even with something small. A woman with a rich, full life doesn't have time to beg for attention. She's too busy living. And that fullness draws people to her like flowers draw bees. Be that woman. Habit number 4, she protects her peace like it's precious, because it is. Let me share something that might feel uncomfortable at first. There was a time in my life when I believed that being a good woman meant saying yes to everything. It meant being available for everyone. It meant absorbing other people's drama, other people's problems, other people's negativity, because that's what caring people do. And do you know what happened? I was exhausted. I was drained. I was so busy carrying everyone else's burdens that I forgot I had a life of my own to protect. And here's the irony. The more I gave without boundaries, the less people respected me. The more available I was, the more they took me for granted. It took me a long time to understand this truth. Boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are not selfishness. Boundaries are an act of love, for yourself and for others. Women who never have to beg for attention understand this deeply. They know that their peace is precious. Their energy is sacred. Their time is valuable. And they protect these things, not with anger, not with aggression, but with quiet, firm grace. Why does this matter? Because when you have no boundaries, you have no shape. You become whatever other people want you to be. You mold yourself to fit their expectations, their needs, their demands. And when you do that, you disappear. People don't notice you because there's nothing solid to notice. You've become a reflection of everyone else instead of a light of your own. But when you have clear boundaries, when you know what you will and will not accept, what you will and will not tolerate, you become defined. You become clear. You become someone with substance. And that substance, that clarity, that's what attracts genuine attention and respect. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Grace. Grace is 51 years old. She's a mother, a professional, and a caretaker for her aging parents. For years, she was the person everyone called when they needed something. Family, friends, colleagues, everyone knew that Grace would always say yes. And she did. She always said yes. Until one day she couldn't anymore. She was burned out. Her health was suffering. Her joy was gone. She realized that she had been so busy being everything to everyone that she had stopped being anything to herself. So she started making changes. When a friend called with drama for the third time that week, Grace gently said, "I love you, but I'm not in the space to talk about this right now. Let's connect another time." When a colleague asked her to take on yet another project, she said, "I appreciate you thinking of me, but I can't take on anything else right now." When family members expected her to drop everything to solve their problems, she started saying, "I'm here for you, but I also need to take care of myself." At first, some people pushed back. Some people were upset. But over time, something interesting happened. People started respecting her more. They stopped taking her for granted. They started asking instead of assuming. They started valuing her time instead of wasting it. And Grace, she finally had space to breathe, space to live, space to be at peace. So what can you do? First, understand that you are allowed to say no. This sounds simple, but for many women it's revolutionary. You are allowed to decline invitations. You are allowed to refuse requests. You are allowed to protect your energy without explaining yourself. No is a complete sentence. And it doesn't make you unkind. It makes you wise. Second, start small. If you've been a yes woman your whole life, you don't have to transform overnight. Start with something small. Say no to one thing this week that you would normally say yes to out of guilt or obligation. Notice how it feels. It might feel uncomfortable at first. It might feel scary, but over time, it will feel freeing. Third, decide in advance what you will protect. What are the non-negotiables in your life? Your sleep, your quiet mornings, your time with your children, your creative time. Identify what matters most to you and build boundaries around those things. Protect them fiercely, not with anger, but with calm certainty. Fourth, surround yourself with people who respect your boundaries. The right people in your life will not punish you for having limits. They will admire you for it. They will respect you more, not less. If someone consistently crosses your boundaries, if they guilt you, manipulate you, or make you feel bad for taking care of yourself, that tells you something important about them. It tells you that they valued your availability, not your well-being. And you deserve people who value your well-being. A woman who protects her peace doesn't have to beg for attention. She naturally attracts people who appreciate the privilege of her presence. Because when you protect something, you show the world that it has value. And you, my dear, have immense value. Habit number 5, she is not afraid to walk away. Now this final habit might be the most powerful of all. And it's also the most difficult for many women. Because we've been taught to stay, to hold on, to keep trying, to make things work even when they're clearly broken. We've been taught that walking away is failure, that leaving is giving up, that a good woman endures no matter what. But I want to offer you a different perspective. Walking away, when it's done with dignity, with grace, with clarity, is not weakness. It is strength. It is one of the most powerful statements a woman can make. It says, "I know my worth, and I refuse to stay where I am not valued." Women who never have to beg for attention have mastered this. They understand that their presence is a gift. And if someone doesn't appreciate that gift, they have the courage to take it elsewhere. Why does this matter? Because when you stay in situations where you are ignored, dismissed, taken for granted, or disrespected, you are sending a message. You are telling the world that this is what you deserve, that this is all you're worth. And over time, you start to believe it. But when you're willing to walk away, when you're willing to leave the table where you're not being served, something changes. You reclaim your power. You remind yourself that you are not dependent on anyone else's validation. You prove that you can survive and even thrive without people who don't deserve you. And here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you're willing to walk away is often the moment people start paying attention. Not because you're playing a game, not because you're trying to manipulate anyone, but because they finally see that you value yourself too much to accept crumbs. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Layla. Layla is 43 years old. She had been in a relationship for several years with a man who gave her just enough to keep her hoping, but never enough to feel truly loved. He would pay attention when it suited him. He would show affection on his terms. But whenever Layla needed reassurance, whenever she needed to feel chosen, he would pull away. For a long time, Layla stayed. She told herself things would get better. She tried to be more understanding. She tried to be more patient. She tried to be less needy. But nothing changed until one day, something shifted inside her. She realized that she had spent years waiting for this man to see her worth. And in all that time, she had forgotten to see it herself. So she made a decision. She didn't yell, argue. She didn't beg one more time for his attention. She simply said, with quiet dignity, "This isn't working for me. I deserve more. And I'm ready to find it with or without you." And she walked away. It wasn't easy. It was one of the hardest things she'd ever done. There were nights of doubt, moments of loneliness, times when she questioned herself. But she kept walking. And slowly, her life began to change. She started to see herself differently. She started to treat herself with more respect. And the people around her started to respond to that new energy. The right people started showing up. People who didn't need to be convinced to pay attention. People who saw her value immediately. People who felt lucky to be in her presence. And that man she left. He eventually realized what he had lost. But by then, Layla had moved on. She had found something better, not just a better relationship, but a better relationship with herself. So what can you do? First, stop making yourself small to fit into spaces that aren't meant for you. If a relationship, a friendship, a job, a situation constantly requires you to shrink yourself, to silence yourself, to hide parts of who you are, that is not your home. That is a cage, and you deserve to fly. Second, know your deal breakers. What will you absolutely not accept? Not as rules to trap anyone, but as standards to protect yourself. Disrespect, dishonesty, being consistently ignored, being made to feel like an option instead of a priority. Know what those things are for you, and hold firm when they are crossed. Third, trust that the universe will not punish you for choosing yourself. So many women stay in situations that hurt them because they're afraid of what comes next. They're afraid of being alone, afraid of starting over, afraid that nothing better is waiting for them. But here's what I want you to know. When you choose yourself, when you honor yourself, doors open that you never even knew existed. Opportunities appear. The right people find you because you finally made space for them. Fourth, remember that walking away doesn't have to be angry or dramatic. It can be quiet. It can be peaceful. It can be done with grace and dignity. You don't have to burn bridges. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You just have to know in your own heart that you deserve better. And then have the courage to go find it. A woman who is willing to walk away never has to beg for attention. Because she knows, deeply knows, that her presence is valuable. And anyone who doesn't recognize that is simply making room for someone who will. Now, before we close, I want to take a moment to speak to something that might be sitting in your heart right now. Maybe you've been listening to all of this and thinking, but this isn't how I was raised. This isn't what I was taught. I was taught that a good woman is quiet, that a good woman sacrifices everything, that a good woman waits for love to find her. Maybe you've been taught that wanting attention is vain, that expecting respect is demanding, that having boundaries is cold and unloving. And if those beliefs are living inside you, I want to gently invite you to question them. Not with anger, not with rebellion. Just with curiosity, ask yourself, who taught me this? Did they live happily following this advice? Is this belief actually helping me, or is it keeping me small? Because here's what I believe. A woman who fills her own cup is not selfish, she is sustainable. A woman who speaks with intention is not cold, she is powerful. A woman who has her own life is not ignoring her responsibilities, she is honoring her existence. A woman who protects her peace is not unkind, she is wise. A woman who is willing to walk away is not giving up, she is choosing herself. These things are not flaws, they are features of a woman who knows her worth. And you are allowed, yes, allowed to know your worth. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to have standards. You are allowed to expect respect. You are allowed to be seen, heard, valued, and appreciated, not because you begged for it, but because that is your birthright. Maybe you were taught that you must always put everyone else first, even at the expense of your own well-being. But here's a new truth for you to consider. When you honor yourself, you teach others how to honor you. When you value yourself, you become more valuable to everyone around you. When you stop shrinking, you give other women permission to stop shrinking too. This is not about being arrogant or prideful. This is about recognizing that you were created with purpose, with beauty, with worth, and living in alignment with that truth. So let's bring everything together. We talked about 5 habits of women who never have to beg for attention. 1, she fills her own cup first. She doesn't wait for others to make her feel whole. She wakes up every day and pours into herself so that when she enters the world, she is full, radiant, and overflowing. 2, she speaks with intention, not desperation. She doesn't talk to fill silence or prove her worth. She speaks when she has something meaningful to say, and her words carry weight because of it. 3, she has a life she actually loves. She doesn't orbit around other people. She has her own passions, her own goals, her own sources of joy. And that fullness makes her magnetic. 4, she protects her peace like it's precious, because it is. She has boundaries. She knows what she will and will not accept, and she guards her energy with quiet grace. 5, she is not afraid to walk away. She knows her worth too well to stay where she is not valued, and she has the courage to leave the table when she's not being served. These are not tricks. These are not games. These are ways of being that will transform not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. And here's what I want to leave you with today. Wherever you are in your life right now, whether you're just beginning this journey or you're far along the path, please hear me when I say this. You are not invisible. You are not too much. You are not too old. You are not too damaged. You are a woman with light inside of her. You are a woman with gifts to offer the world. You are a woman who deserves to be seen, chosen, and cherished. And you don't have to beg for any of it. You just have to believe it. Live it. Embody it. Start today. Start with one small shift. Fill your cup a little fuller. Speak with a little more intention. Find one thing that brings you joy. Set one small boundary. Be willing to walk away from one thing that's draining your light. Small steps, taken consistently, create massive change. And the woman you're becoming, she's magnificent. She walks into rooms and people notice. Not because she's trying, but because she is so fully herself, so grounded in her worth, so radiant in her peace that it's impossible not to. That woman is not a stranger to you. She is you. She has always been you. She's just been waiting for you to remember. If this message resonated with you, if something in these words touched your heart today, I would be so honored if you would share it with a woman who needs to hear it too. Maybe she's a friend who's been struggling. Maybe she's a sister, a mother, a colleague who's been feeling invisible. Send this to her. Let her know she's not alone. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel. Every video I create is designed to help you step more fully into your power, your worth, your beautiful, radiant self. Before you go, I would love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, which of these 5 habits resonated with you most deeply? Which one is your heart calling you to work on first? Your words might be exactly what another woman needs to read today. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for investing this time in yourself. Thank you for being the kind of woman who wants to grow, to learn, to become more. You are extraordinary. Never forget that. I'll see you in the next video.